I think the last time I was so choked up was 6 years ago at the 30th anniversary dinner. This is really very, very emotional for all of us, Rabbi Hirschfeld, Rabbi Shurn, and myself, to see so many of you and how well everybody's doing and how connected everybody is to each other, to Shapell's Midrash Rachel, to the community. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that's connected to this week's Parsha, which I'm going to bring in a minute because I think it represents Rabbi Cytrin, who represents really the alumni and what we stand for and what we accomplish. But there's also something in next week's Parsha that really was one of the foundations of when we started Darche Noam and then Midrash Rachel, one of the educational foundations. You all always hear Darche Noam, unity through Torah, that's our theme. But there's another very important message in next week's Parsha that was really one of the foundations of our starting the yeshiva and then the midrasha. It's based on one of Rav Dessler's most important sections about the difference between the first luchot, the first commandments, and the luchot shniot, the second ones. The first luchot, because of Chet HaEgel, they were destroyed, they were broken, and we had to have a new luchot. And Rav Dessler says that the reason the luchot were broken was because they were done with lots of noise, lots of fanfare. They were given quickly. And the Luchot Shniot were Psol Lecha. That Moshe had to do it and the Jewish people had to do it. And it was done quietly and it was done with work. And this has been one of the foundations of our educational philosophy. And it's very important for Bali Tshuva. Rabbi Haber mentioned before the Gilui, the inspiration. It hits you. And the challenge then is to slowly, step by step, make sure that you are not overcome by what happened to the Luchos Rishonos, all the noise and the fanfare that unfortunately can slip away very easily. And it requires slow, steady work, one step at a time. And if Rabbi Cytrin has succeeded to reach the place where he is today, and we look back at his entry into the yeshiva, we should acknowledge Rav Moshe Weiss, who is here, who brought Rabbi Cytrin into the yeshiva, among many other chashuv talmidim. But Rabbi Cytrin worked slowly, step by step by step, through a number of years in the yeshiva, and then on through his kollel. In Dallas, I visited him step by step. He's constantly building and growing. Slowly, step by step. And that represents the success of every one of you. Then we come to this past week's parsha that we read this morning. And the Mishnah that connects with it is the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Dalet, Gimel Kesarim Heim. There are 3 crowns. Keser Torah, Keser Kahuna, Keser Malchus. There's the crown of Torah, there's the crown of priesthood, there's the crown of royalty. Each of them has a kli in the Mishkan. Paralleled with it, the Torah is the Aron, the Ark, the Shulchan is the vessel for the Malchus, for royalty, which also has to do with Parnasa. And the Mizbeach, the altar, is the vessel for Kahuna, for priesthood. This can also be connected to Torah and Avoda of Kahuna and Gemilus Chasadim of the Malchus. Then the Mishnah continues. V'keser Shem Tov Ole al Gabehem. That the crown of Shem Tov, of a good name, is on top of all of them. And the most glaring question that the Maral asks So then there are 4. There aren't 3. It says Gimel Kesarim Heim. It counts 3, and then it says the 4th one is above all of them. So there's a very long moral on it. We'll just try to pick out one point. Torah, Kahuna, Malchus. These are all part of the person. They really are who you are. The Melech is anointed from outside and he becomes a Melech. The Kohen is born a Melech, a Kohen. And even the Torah that you acquire, now you become a person with Torah. And a Keser implies the highest levels that the person can reach. It's the pinnacle, and nothing can go higher. The vessel in the Mishkan that represents Shem Tov, a good name, is the menorah. And the menorah is Lahalos Ner Tamid. It's always going higher. There can be nothing higher than that. Shem Tov is not who you are. Shem Tov is the impact of what you do. It's the reputation, it's the impact, it's what the world out there thinks of you. And that, Shem Tov, says the Maharal, that's unlimited. It's not limited by you. Because it can just keep expanding and expanding the more you do. It's outside of you and it has no limits. Each of the things that have Ketarim, as you get them, you change. The Shem Tov, you don't change, but you change the world. So it can't really have a Keter. It has no limits. Rabbi Cytrin, both in Dallas and here now, and I believe he represents our alumni, our Talmidim and our Talmidos, has the Keter of Shem Tov. It's beyond Torah, Avodah, Gemilus, Chasadim that everybody shares. Everybody has the same Torah, Avodah, Gemilus, Chasadim, but the impact, the reputation, the Kiddush Hashem, that's Ola al Kulam. And it makes us proud to have an alumnus like Rabbi Cytrin representing all of you sitting in the room with a Shem Tov Ola al Gabehen. Those of you who were here 6 years ago remember that my son got up and made a surprise speech. He's not going to do that tonight. But he said something to me that he heard from one of his friends who lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh, which has the highest concentration of Shapell's Midrash alumni per kilometer in the world. And he says, his friend comes over to him and he says, Shapell's Darche Noam, the Talmidim, they're so unusual. Everyone is such a mensch. And it's hard to believe that they're Baalei Tshuva. And he says, and you know, I've started to be able to guess who is a Shapell's or Midrash Rachel alumnus. That's Shem Tov Ole al Gabehem. That's something that Rabbi Cytrin represents for us in a very intense way, representing all of you. We're very proud of him. We're very proud of all of you. And we call Rabbi Cytrin up to share a few words with us.